Meat prices have gone up faster than almost anything else in the grocery cart, but protein itself hasn't gotten more expensive. You've just been shopping in the wrong aisle. There's a whole category of foods sitting in the same store, most of them a fraction of the price of chicken or beef, gram for gram, that deliver just as much protein, sometimes more. Today, I'm walking you through 15 of them. Pantry staples, freezer staples, and a couple of old world foods most people walk right past without a second look. Stick around because number 6 on this list is something most people only ever eat as a garnish on the side of sushi, and it happens to be one of the cheapest complete proteins you can buy by the pound. And number 11 is a bean that's been a bar snack in the Mediterranean for centuries. Americans have almost never heard of it, and it may be the best protein to dollar ratio on this entire list. If you've ever looked at your grocery bill and wondered how to eat well without your protein budget doing all the damage, this is the video for that. Let's get into it.
Number 1. Seitan. Seitan is wheat gluten, the protein that's left behind after you wash the starch out of wheat dough, kneaded, seasoned, and simmered into a dense, chewy base that takes on almost any flavor you cook it with. It's been part of East Asian cooking for over 1,000 years, originally developed in Buddhist monastery kitchens as a way to build a satisfying meat-like dish without meat. Nutritionally, it's hard to beat for the price. A 3-ounce serving generally runs somewhere in the high teens to low 20s in grams of protein, depending on the brand or recipe, competitive with a similar portion of chicken or beef at a fraction of the cost per pound. What it doesn't have is fiber, and what it does have, importantly, is gluten, so it's completely off the table for anyone with celiac disease or a gluten sensitivity. For everyone else, Seitan is versatile. Slice it thin and pan-sear it for a stir-fry, shred it for tacos or a sandwich filling. Cube it and brown it into a stew the same way you'd brown beef. It holds a marinade well and crisps nicely in a hot pan, which makes it one of the easier meat substitutes to cook with confidence the first time you try it. Quick recipe, Seitan stir fry. Slice Seitan into thin strips, sear in a hot pan with a little oil until browned on both sides, then toss with sliced peppers, garlic, and a splash of soy sauce and rice vinegar. 5 minutes, done.
Number 2. Textured vegetable protein, TVP. TVP is one of the least glamorous foods on this list, and one of the most useful. It's made from defatted soy flour that's been cooked under pressure and dried into small granules or chunks. Shelf-stable, extremely cheap, and almost weightless until you rehydrate it. A quarter cup of the dry granules generally provides somewhere in the range of 12 to 15 grams of protein, and because it's dry, a small bag goes a very long way. It can sit in a pantry for a long time without spoiling, which makes it one of the more practical foods on this list for anyone trying to stock up affordably. The best use for TVP isn't as a meat replacement on its own, it's as a stretcher. Rehydrate it in hot water or broth for about 10 minutes, then mix it into ground meat at whatever ratio you're comfortable with, or use it entirely on its own in dishes where texture matters less than flavor: chili, taco filling, pasta sauce, or a shepherd's pie topping. Because it soaks up whatever liquid and seasoning you cook it in, it takes on the flavor of the dish almost completely, which is exactly why it disappears so well into familiar recipes. Quick recipe, 1 pot chili stretch. Rehydrate ½ cup dry TVP in 3/4 cup hot broth for 10 minutes, then stir it into your usual chili recipe alongside or instead of the ground beef. You'll add real protein and cut the meat cost of the dish substantially without changing how it tastes.
3. Nonfat Dry Milk. Nonfat dry milk has an old-fashioned reputation, something from your grandparents' pantry, but it's quietly one of the most efficient ways to add protein to food you're already cooking without changing the dish itself. 1/3 cup of the powder typically provides around 8 grams of protein, and because it's a powder, you're not adding volume or liquid to a recipe, you're adding concentrated milk solids. Stir it into oatmeal while it cooks, whisk it into soup, mash it into potatoes with the butter, or add it to bread dough, pancake batter, or a smoothie. In most of these, you won't taste it. You'll just end up with a meal that has meaningfully more protein than it did before. It's also inexpensive to store for a long time. Because the fat has been removed, it doesn't go rancid the way whole milk powder can, which makes it one of the more forgiving pantry staples if you like to buy in bulk. If you're lactose sensitive, note that this is still a dairy product and contains lactose. It isn't lactose-free. To make protein-boosted potatoes, mash your potatoes as usual, then stir in 2-3 tablespoons of non-fat dry milk powder along with the butter and a splash of the potato cooking water. It dissolves in completely and adds protein without changing the texture.
Number 4. Defatted peanut powder. This is one most people have never cooked with, even if they've heard of it. Defatted peanut powder is exactly what it sounds like. Peanuts that have had most of the oil pressed out, then ground into a fine powder. What's left is concentrated peanut flavor and peanut protein with a fraction of the fat and calories of regular peanut butter. 2 tablespoons generally deliver somewhere around 6 to 8 grams of protein for a fraction of the fat of the same amount of peanut butter, which makes it useful for anyone trying to add protein without adding a lot of fat calories alongside it. Mixed with water, it turns back into a peanut sauce or a thinner peanut butter-like spread. Stirred dry into yogurt, smoothies, pancake batter, or oatmeal, it adds peanut flavor and a protein bump in one step. It also works well on the savory side. Whisked with soy sauce, lime, and a little water, it becomes a sauté-style dressing for noodles or grilled vegetables in about 2 minutes. Quick recipe, peanut noodle sauce. Whisk 3 tablespoons of defatted peanut powder with warm water until smooth. Then add a splash of soy sauce, a squeeze of lime, and a little chili if you like heat. Toss with noodles or use as a dipping sauce.
Number 5. Split peas. Split peas are one of the few legumes on this list you can grow yourself. They're simply field peas that have been dried and split, the same plant family as garden peas. And if you've got a vegetable bed with cool spring or fall weather, they're a straightforward crop. Sow them early, let the pods dry fully on the vine, then shell and split them, or buy them already prepared, which is what most people do. 1 cooked cup provides roughly 16 grams of protein, and unlike most dried legumes, split peas need no soaking. They break down on their own as they simmer, which is what gives split pea soup its naturally thick, creamy texture without any added cream. They're also unusually high in fiber alongside that protein, which is part of why a bowl of split pea soup is so filling for so little cost. Beyond soup, cooked split peas work well pureed into a dip, folded into a curry, or simmered down into a spread for toast with a little garlic and lemon. Quick recipe, classic split pea soup. Simmer 1 cup dried split peas with a chopped onion, carrot, and celery in 4 cups broth for about 45 minutes until the peas break down and the soup thickens on its own. Season with salt, pepper, and a bay leaf.
Number 6. Canned sardines. Sardines get treated as an afterthought, something you eat on a cracker or skip entirely, but by protein per dollar, they're one of the strongest foods on this entire list, and one of the most nutritionally complete. A single can generally delivers somewhere around 20 to 23 grams of protein, along with omega-3 fats and vitamin B12. If you buy the varieties packed with the bones still in, which is most canned sardines, you're also getting a meaningful amount of calcium, since the bones have been softened enough in canning to eat along with the fish. And because sardines are small, short-lived fish low on the food chain, they generally carry less mercury than larger predatory fish like tuna, which is worth knowing if you eat canned fish often. They're ready to eat straight from the can, but they're better with almost no effort, mashed onto toast with lemon and olive oil, tossed through pasta with garlic and chili flakes, or flaked into a salad in place of tuna. Quick recipe, sardine toast. Mash a can of sardines with a squeeze of lemon, a drizzle of olive oil, and a pinch of black pepper. Spread on toasted bread and top with sliced tomato or a few capers.
Number 7. Tempeh. Tempeh is fermented soybeans pressed into a firm, dense cake, a whole food, not a processed one, which is part of what sets it apart from a lot of the other soy products on grocery shelves. It originated in Indonesia, where it's still eaten daily, and the fermentation is what gives it its firmer texture and nuttier flavor compared to tofu. A 3-ounce serving typically provides somewhere between 16 and 20 grams of protein, and because soybeans supply all 9 essential amino acids, tempeh counts as a complete protein on its own, something most plant foods can't claim individually. The fermentation process also partially breaks the proteins down before you even cook it, which some research suggests may make them somewhat easier to digest compared to unfermented soy. Its firm texture holds up well to high heat, which makes it good for dishes where you want some bite. Sliced and pan-fried until crisp, crumbled into a taco filling, or cubed and tossed into a stir-fry or grain bowl. Quick recipe, crispy tempeh tacos. Crumble tempeh into a hot pan with a little oil, cook until browned and slightly crisp. Season with cumin, chili powder, and a squeeze of lime, then pile into tortillas with your usual taco toppings.
8. Frozen shelled edamame. Edamame, young soybeans, harvested before they fully mature and dry, is one of the easiest foods on this list to work into a routine, mostly because the frozen, pre-shelled version requires almost no prep at all. One cooked cup provides roughly 17 grams of protein, and like tempeh, soy's amino acid profile means edamame counts as a complete protein by itself. It's also a simple crop to grow at home if you've got garden space. Soybeans have planted in spring after the last frost and harvested in mid to late summer while the pods are still green and plump, well before you'd let them dry down for storage. The frozen version is just as nutritious as fresh, and it needs almost nothing done to it. Steam or microwave straight from frozen, salt lightly, and eat the pods, or shell them first and toss the beans into rice bowls, soups, salads, or noodle dishes for an easy protein add. Quick recipe: edamame fried rice add-in. Stir a cup of shelled cooked edamame into fried rice during the last 2 minutes of cooking, along with a scrambled egg and chopped scallion. Number 9. Canned mackerel. Mackerel sits on the shelf next to tuna and sardines and gets bought far less often, which is a shame, because it holds up well against both. A 3-ounce serving generally provides somewhere around 18 to 22 grams of protein, along with vitamin B12, vitamin D, and a strong dose of omega-3 fats, often more per serving than canned tuna. Like sardines, mackerel is a smaller, shorter-lived fish, which generally keeps its mercury levels lower than large predatory species, something worth factoring in if canned fish is a regular part of your week. It has a richer, more assertive flavor than tuna, closer to sardines, which makes it better suited to dishes with bold seasoning rather than a plain mayo-based salad. Try it flaked over rice with soy sauce and scallions, mixed into a fish cake with breadcrumbs and egg, or stirred into a tomato-based pasta sauce where its richness stands in nicely for anchovies or a meat-based ragu. Quick recipe: mackerel rice bowl. Flake a can of mackerel over a bowl of steamed rice, drizzle with soy sauce and sesame oil, and top with sliced cucumber, scallion, and a soft-boiled egg.
Number 10. Cottage cheese. Cottage cheese has had a bit of a comeback in recent years, and the reputation is deserved. 1 cup generally delivers somewhere around 24 to 28 grams of protein, among the highest of anything on this list, along with a solid amount of calcium and vitamin B12. Most of that protein is casein, which digests more slowly than the whey protein found in milk or yogurt. In practical terms, that just means it tends to be more filling for longer after a meal compared to a fast-digesting protein source of the same size. Useful context if you're building a meal around it rather than just snacking on it. Its mild flavor and soft texture make it one of the more flexible foods here. Stir it into scrambled eggs before cooking for extra protein and creaminess. Blend it smooth to use as a dip base. Spread it on toast under sliced tomato, or blend it into pancake batter where it disappears completely and leaves the pancakes noticeably more filling. Quick recipe: blended cottage cheese pancakes. Blend 1 cup cottage cheese with 2 eggs, ½ cup oats, and a pinch of cinnamon until smooth. Cook like regular pancakes on a lightly greased pan. You'll get a protein-dense batter with almost no added flour.
11 Lupini beans. If you've traveled through Italy, Greece, or Spain, you may have seen small, pale yellow beans served in brine as a bar snack. Those are Lupini beans, and outside of Mediterranean and South American communities, most Americans have simply never encountered them. A cup of prepared Lupini beans provides roughly 12 to 13 grams of protein, and what sets them apart from most other beans is the ratio. They're unusually high in protein and fiber, while being relatively low in digestible carbohydrates compared to something like chickpeas or black beans. Raw Lupini beans contain natural bitter alkaloids that need to be removed through soaking and brining before they're safe to eat in quantity, which is exactly what the jarred ready-to-eat versions sold in Italian grocery stores and online have already gone through. Buying them prepared is the simplest and safest way to try them. Once you have the prepared beans, they need essentially no cooking. Eat them straight from the jar as a snack, the way they're traditionally served, or toss them into a salad for a firm, satisfying bite that holds its shape far better than most cooked beans. Quick recipe: Lupini bean salad. Toss a cup of prepared Lupini beans with chopped cucumber, tomato, red onion, olive oil, lemon juice, and a pinch of oregano for a simple Mediterranean-style side.
Number 12. Nutritional yeast. Nutritional yeast is deactivated yeast, grown specifically to be eaten rather than to leaven bread, sold as small yellow flakes with a savory, cheese-like flavor that surprises a lot of people the first time they try it. 2 tablespoons commonly provide around 5 grams of protein. It's not a meal-sized protein source on its own, but it's an easy, low-effort way to boost the protein and flavor of things that don't have much of either. Many fortified brands also add vitamin B12, which is worth checking the label for if you eat a mostly plant-based diet, since B12 is one of the few nutrients that's hard to get from plants alone. Its real strength is how easily it disappears into other food. Sprinkle it over popcorn, roasted vegetables, or pasta. Stir it into scrambled eggs, soup, or a cream sauce. Blend it into a salad dressing for a savory umami backbone. A little goes a long way, and it's shelf-stable for a long time in a sealed container. Quick recipe: cheesy popcorn. Pop popcorn as usual, then toss immediately with a tablespoon of olive oil and 2 to 3 tablespoons of nutritional yeast while still warm, so it sticks.
Number 13. Firm tofu. Tofu gets a bad reputation from people who've only had it prepared badly. Soft, bland, and untextured. Firm and extra firm tofu, cooked properly, is a completely different food. Crisp on the outside, satisfying, and one of the most affordable complete proteins available. A half cup generally provides somewhere between 15 and 22 grams of protein, depending on the firmness and brand. In calcium set varieties, check the label for calcium sulfate in the ingredients, can also supply a meaningful amount of calcium on top of the protein. Like soy's other forms, tofu contains all 9 essential amino acids. The key to good tofu is pressing out the water before you cook it. Wrap it in a clean towel with something heavy on top for 15-20 minutes, which lets it crisp properly in a hot pan instead of steaming. From there, crumbling it into a scramble, cubing it for a stir fry, or grating it into a meat sauce are all easy ways to fold it into meals you already cook regularly. Quick recipe: crispy pan-fried tofu. Press firm tofu for 15 minutes, cube it, toss with a little cornstarch, and pan-fry in oil until golden and crisp on all sides. Finish with soy sauce, garlic, and a pinch of chili flakes.
Number 14. Plain Greek yogurt. Greek yogurt is strained more than regular yogurt, which removes much of the liquid whey and concentrates the protein that's left behind, which is exactly why it's thicker and more protein-dense than standard yogurt of the same size. A 6-ounce serving typically provides somewhere around 15 to 20 grams of protein, along with calcium, and in products with live active cultures, which most brands list on the label, some beneficial bacteria as well. Large store-brand tubs are often one of the more economical proteins per gram in the entire dairy aisle, especially compared to individual flavored cups, which cost more for less protein and more added sugar. Plain Greek yogurt is also one of the more versatile foods on this list, eaten with fruit and a drizzle of honey, blended into a smoothie, used in place of sour cream on a baked potato or in a dip, or whisked with herbs and lemon into a quick sauce for grilled vegetables or fish. Quick recipe: Greek yogurt herb sauce. Whisk plain Greek yogurt with a squeeze of lemon, a splash of olive oil, minced garlic, and chopped dill or parsley. Spoon over grilled vegetables, fish, or roasted potatoes.
Finally, number 15. Green peas. We're closing on the most unassuming food on the whole list. Green peas are a cheap freezer staple that most people think of as a side dish afterthought, but on their own, they contribute a real amount of protein alongside fiber, vitamin C, and vitamin K. One cooked cup provides roughly 8 grams of protein, modest compared to some of the foods earlier on this list, but it adds up quickly because peas are so easy to add in bulk to other dishes. Stir 2 cups into a soup, pasta dish, rice, or casserole, and you've added roughly 16 grams of protein to the meal without changing what it fundamentally is. Peas are also one of the easier crops to grow at home, a cool season vegetable that goes into the ground in early spring or fall and climbs a trellis with minimal care, ready to harvest in as little as 60 days. Frozen peas, picked and frozen at peak ripeness, are nutritionally close to fresh and available year-round for very little cost. Quick recipe: pea and mint side. Simmer frozen peas for 2 to 3 minutes, drain, and toss with butter, chopped mint, salt, and pepper for a simple side that also works stirred through pasta.
15 high-protein cheap foods. And if you look back across all of them, they fall into a few natural groups. The soy family, tempeh, edamame, tofu, and TVP, gives you complete plant protein at some of the lowest prices in the store. The canned fish, sardines, and mackerel gives you complete protein plus omega-3s and B12 for less than almost any fresh cut of meat. The dairy group, cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, and non-fat dry milk delivers some of the highest protein per dollar numbers on this entire list, especially if you buy the large, plain, unflavored versions. And then the odd ones out. Split peas, lupini beans, green peas, seitan, nutritional yeast, and peanut powder each solve a slightly different problem, whether that's stretching a dish, adding fiber alongside protein, or working around a dietary restriction. None of this requires you to give anything up. You don't need to stop eating meat. Most of these work just as well as an addition to a meal that already has meat in it, stretching the protein further and lowering the average cost per meal without anyone at the table noticing a difference. And if you do want to lean more plant-forward, several of these, soy, tofu, tempeh, are complete proteins on their own, not compromises. What ties all of it together is something worth sitting with. High-quality protein was never actually expensive. What's expensive is protein wrapped in convenience, packaging, and marketing. Sardines, split peas, and frozen peas have been feeding people well for a very long time, quietly, without a health claim printed anywhere on the label. They didn't need one. If you made it this far, let me know in the comments which of these surprised you the most. And if you already keep one of these in regular rotation, tell me how you cook it. If this was useful, hit subscribe and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.